Jaws by Steven Spielberg and Psycho by Alfred Hitchcock are both renowned movies that inspired other horror movies to come. Jaws is a pioneer when it comes to films of the horror genre. Jaws is one of the first ever summer blockbusters where a woman is killed while swimming at a beach. Upon the discovery of the mysterious incident, Police Chief Martin Brody thinks that they need to close down the beach until the situation is resolved. Refusing to acknowledge claims of shark attacks, the mayor insists to keep the beach open to its vast amount of seasonal visitors. All of a sudden, another person becomes victim to the great white. Martin decides to go after the shark. Ichthyologists named Matt Hooper and a captain named Quint accompany Martin on the hunt for the notorious shark. Psycho is the most successful film of the ingenious Alfred Hitchcock. Psycho is a reflection of how innovative Hitchcock is. Marion Crane is a secretary of a very rich man. She decides to steal $40,000 from her employer so she will be able to run off with her boyfriend Sam Loomis. While on the run, there is too much rain for her to continue driving. She stops by the broken down Bates Motel where she meets Norman Bates, the person who runs the motel. He appears friendly, but looks are deceiving. But beyond the plot lines, how does cultural context affect the horror suspense movie genre? This can clearly be seen when you compare and contrast historically what the horror genre looked at the time of filming Psycho versus Jaws. The social atmosphere and cultural acceptance and norms between 1960 when Psycho was released versus 1975 when Jaws opened up in theaters, and economics of studio support and backing, as well as its impact on how filmmakers Hitchcock and Spielberg directed and represented their vision of a horror suspense movie to the general audience. Historically, before 1960, horror movies depicted monsters as supernatural and mutated antagonists including Godzilla, Dracula, Frankenstein, and the Wolfman. However, Alfred Hitchcock forever changed the genre by having the antagonist be a seemingly normal human hiding a monster within. In Jaws, the monster is a great white shark, who terrorizes the beach resort town of Amity Island. However, director Steven Spielberg shook viewers to the core because sharks are real and swimming around and any of us could be shark bait, being in the wrong place and time. Both Psycho and Jaws revolutionized the horror genre by changing the look and feel of monsters from supernatural, mutated creatures to normal-looking beings, masking a terrifying monster within. This upped the ante of the horror genre. Previously, we knew what to expect when we saw gory Dracula or Frankenstein. However, we never expected a soft-spoken, shy motel manager to murder his guests while she is showering, or a great white shark to eat a young innocent boy enjoying a day at the beach. No heavy makeup or special effects to get our hearts racing here. Socially, Hitchcock was very limited to what he was able to show due to the nature of the film industries in the 1960s. The squeaky clean films of the 1950s featuring Doris Day and Elvis Presley did little to help Hitchcock's vision for a slasher movie. In addition, he was restricted to following the production code dating back to 1930s, which restricted showing sex, drug use, drinking, and anything else deemed morally wrong. He wasn't allowed to show much of anything back then, including nudity and not too much gore. This forced Alfred Hitchcock to come up with creative ways on how he could film the scene with these drawbacks. The actress playing Marion Crane wore a cream-colored one-piece bathing suit in the shower scene to simulate nudity, and Hitchcock used interesting camera angles including close-up shots, high-angle shots, and medium shots. This tricked the eye so viewers wouldn't notice the suit. The scene also didn't even show the knife stabbing or even touching Marion. Through Hitchcock's clever use of quick cuts, all the audience sees is the knife making stabbing motions towards the women. Then you see blood go on the floor, the face of Marion screaming, ending with her lifeless stare. The high-pitched music used during the shower scene intensified our fear and left audiences at the edge of their seats. This shows how you didn't have to make gory scenes for a horror movie to have shock value. In fact, most of the things we see during the shower scene actually was never shown on film. While the audience never sees the knife have contact with Marion, Hitchcock's ingenious, quick edits still had the same or even better effects as if he were to show the gory act. But by the time Spielberg released Jaws in 1975. Many other violent and sexually explicit movies had been shown on the big screen, such as Straw Dogs in 1971 and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre in 1974. Therefore, the horror genre had pushed its boundaries. Because of this, the public had become accustomed and familiar with gory violence, and therefore Spielberg was able to show much more than Hitchcock, including a woman and boy being devoured by Jaws and images of a severed foot and head. As a result, violence was used more frequently in Jaws than Psycho. Music was also used very efficiently as an element of horror in Jaws to increase suspense. Every time the shark music started, we knew that the shark was approaching and was about to eat its unexpected victim. Economically, there was a huge difference in budget between Jaws and Psycho. Psycho had a relatively small budget of only $807,000, while Jaws had a whopping $7 million. The reason Psycho had such a low budget is because no studio head wanted to invest in a movie where the main character was killed off in the middle of the film. That was unheard of back then. In addition, studios were afraid of investing in a potentially controversial movie that could violate the highly strict production code. Therefore, Hitchcock had to invest his own money into the movie. About 60% of the movie budget was put up by him. This turned out to be an advantage for Hitchcock, as he could now work more freely without the studio heads overseeing and controlling his every move. This enabled him to push the boundaries of what people were used to seeing in 1960. Janet Leigh in her underwear, a flushing toilet, the slasher violence. All these images were considered very radical at the time. Therefore, Hitchcock changed the horror genre as never seen before its time. On the other hand, the big budget of Jaws was essential to lure audiences out of their homes in the mid-1970s, where TVs were now common in every home and much more convenient and cheaper than going to the movie theater. Studios shelled out big money to produce more daring movies geared towards adults, which could not be aired on public television. To further increase its return on the investment, even though it had graphic scenes of violence and gore, it was aggressively marketed with TV ads, which was rare at the time, and its PG rating allowed huge mainstream audiences, which made it the first huge summer blockbuster, grossing more than $260 million in the US alone. The success of Jaws and Psycho propelled and inspired the popularity of the horror genre, which can be seen in the films of Quentin Tarantino and Wes Craven. The success and ingenious filmmaking of Hitchcock and Spielberg in Psycho and Jaws respectively revolutionized the horror suspense genre for its time, and its impact continued to live on more than 50 years later. Generations will be forever haunted from taking a shower or going in the water and hearing those two dreaded notes.